Hello, this is my action research project. So, my name is Miss Bilby. I teach an 11th grade English language arts class at Emporia High School, and my focus for this project was first period in the morning. So, the problem that I observed in my class is really engagement issues. So, my students had a lack of interest in what we read. Weren't participating much in class discussions, and they just had a general lack of motivation in completing homework and writing assignments. So, my question obviously was, why are my students lacking in engagement, and how can I spark their interest when it comes to reading and talking about literature? So, my idea to see if I could increase engagement was choice based reading. So, my research question became, will integrating student choice in reading increase classroom engagement? This is what I focused on for this project. So, I collected data on classroom engagement when students were assigned a text and then when students got to choose a text. Um, so I collected data on these three areas for both the assigned text and the chosen text. I took observations on group discussion. I had them do post tests where they rated their engagement in different areas on a scale of 1 to 5, and then I had them complete journal entries just to get a more personalized view, just like brief comments on how they felt about the assigned text and then how they thought about what they thought about the chosen text. Um, Again, data was collected the same way for the assigned and the chosen text. So for the first 2 weeks, they read a book, then they did the journal entry, post test, and discussion, and I collected data on it, and then the same thing for the chosen text. And then students did vote on the chosen text. So it was what a majority of the class wanted. I didn't have each student individually choose a novel. And that was just because, for the sake of discussion, I needed them all to be on the same page. Um, so it's not like perfectly individualized to each student's, like what each student wanted to read. It's more of a class as a whole, what a majority of them wanted to read. So, this is my discussion data for the assigned text. So, we had a 30-minute discussion when we finished the novel, and I collected tallies on the number of voluntary responses. And I kind of broke it down minute by minute, like into chunks. So, as you can see, um, we had a total of 11 voluntary responses in a 30-minute discussion period, which obviously is pretty low. That means that a majority of the time I was calling on students. I would ask a question and nobody would volunteer. Um, there was a lot of silence. There was a lot of, just apathy in general. So 11 responses in 30 minutes was that baseline data of how engaged they were when I told them what to read. Um, Again, only a few students consistently volunteered. So those were just those students that tend to speak out more, were kind of carrying the discussion, a lot of long pauses, students waited to be called on, all of those things. So now I'm going to open this up and share it. This is the post test data. So this is where they rated themselves or they rated from a scale of 1 to 5, how interested they were in literature, how motivated they were to discuss, and then how much they enjoyed the text. So this is just to give you a general overview of kind of the numbers. So obviously there was no fours and fives. It's just one, twos, and threes. Um, so we're on the lower end of things here. Um, Overall, we can say from these numbers, interest in reading and talking about literature is pretty low. We've got a lot of ones, twos, and threes. In this second column, there's only 1 3. So motivation to discuss the book is especially low. And then pretty much same for enjoyment. We have a couple threes on there, but majority ones and twos. So overall, um, engagement is low when I um, engagement is low when I assign them a text based on personal ratings. And then I also did the journal entries as well. So here's just a few student responses um, after they read the assigned text. Student number one said, I had a hard time getting into the book. It felt like something written for a different time and I couldn't relate to the characters. Talking about in class was okay, but I didn't feel like I had much to say because I wasn't that interested. And then we have a couple more responses here. But the overarching theme is they didn't really care much about the book. Um, a lot of people seemed checked out in the discussion. It was hard to follow, etc. So overall, we're seeing low engagement when I assigned them what to read. Now let's look at our chosen text data. So again, 30-minute discussion period, tallied the number of voluntary responses. We can already see I was getting a lot more voluntary responses for the chosen text. We bumped from 11 all the way up to 38, which means we're getting over one voluntary response every minute, which is great. My students were just a lot more motivated to discuss when they got to vote and choose the book. If we're looking at a comparison between the first discussion data and the second discussion data, again, we went from 11 to 38 voluntary responses, which the average response per 5 minutes went up significantly. We had also the number of active participants increased. So it wasn't just those 2 to 3 rockstar volunteers, it was over 10 students. So even students who weren't as outspoken still volunteered responses during the discussion. And it was more lively and engaged versus hesitant and flat. And then there were also many follow up questions asked, which I noted as well. So the numbers show increased engagement when they chose the text based on this data. And then let's go ahead and look at the post test data for the chosen text. If I can pull that up. So again, what you would pretty much expect to see rather than ones, twos, and threes, we have threes, fours, and fives most of the time. We still have some, a lot of twos and threes for interest in reading and talking about literature, which is fair, Not all of my students like reading and talking about it. But you'll notice they enjoyed it a lot more and they were more motivated to discuss. In these two columns, we don't really have any twos. So they definitely felt like they were more motivated to talk about the book and they just enjoyed it more overall. So, and then finally, just to really get a good scope of the data, we also have our journal entry samples. I will read student number 6 said, I liked how this book felt more modern and real. I think our class got more into it because we actually cared about what happened. It didn't feel like we were just trying to get through it. So for their chosen book, they obviously chose a more contemporary novel, and they were just more interested in reading it. They were more interested in what was happening, and they liked the fact that they got to vote on it. So, in conclusion, thank you for listening to my presentation. Based on my project, the findings suggest that student choice in reading does in fact increase engagement. It increases motivation, to talk about the book. It increases just overall enjoyment. And then, you know, it increases student desire to read and talk about literature. That is what my data showed. And thank you for listening.